Hello, everyone. Thanks for checking out this special episode of Really Dicey. This is Manny, and I am here with.
Stephen Chenault, the CEO of Troller Games.
Thank you again for taking the time to come and talk to us about your books. Particularly today, we're going to talk about Gary Gygax's The Hermit. During the pandemic, I spent some time running a lot of the modules or play the modules that he had a hand in. Temple of Elemental Evil, Tomb of Horrors, which which I have to say, one thing about Gygax's work was dungeons. They're always wild and very unexpected and extremely dangerous.
Yes.
Um, so I'm really excited to talk about the Hermit because I'm curious. I mean, looking at his early '80s stuff compared to the stuff in the mid 2000s. That's something I'm very interested and keen to see what has changed in his style.
Right. Yeah. So Gary's like you. I've played a lot of Gary Gygax adventures, obviously, and you hit the nail on the head. They're strange, fantastical, and exceedingly dangerous.
Hmm.
Surviving his imagination is no easy feat. And he did the Hermit. It was originally written for his game, Legendary Adventures, way back before he even started publishing with us. And when we first published the Hermit, which I think was 2002, I kept bugging him about an adventure. I said adventures were selling extremely well, and I said we need something for the D&D market, for the D20 folks, some kind of adventure. So he brushed off the Hermit, sent it our way, and we converted it. And I remember when I first sat down and read the Hermit, it starts so normal, like a normal adventure. It would be kind of your tropes are there and whatever, but very very quickly it it goes just into the deep end, and you don't know you're what's going on with with this crazy adventure, and it is so cool. When I read it, and this is we talked a little bit before the show about spoilers, and I don't want to give anything away because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. Um, because the first time I read it, it took me, I don't know, a good long while to figure out what actually was going on, what was happening in Gary's mind. But this Adventure of the Hermit definitely has that, but it almost feels like it's that imagination unchained, if that means anything. I feel like T1 is probably my favorite adventure of all time. I absolutely love T1, The Village of Hamlet. Elemental Evil is good, but The Village of Hamlet is just for me quintessential role playing. I mean, it's open ended. There's NPCs. There's weird magic. There's strange things, and the Hermit has that just unchained in it, I think.
Mm. Yeah, Hamlet's a great module. You looking at it, and you could tell that um, Gygax really wanted to try to think of every eventuality possible.
Yes.
Um, so it's interesting. Like I'm reading it, and I'm like, oh, okay. So if you're heroic, this is your path, and if you're a bunch of murder hobos, this is your path. Like he planned for everything, and I was very impressed with his design work. Um, so with the Hermit. Do you know by any chance what he was inspired by? What led him to create this story? I know. I mean, he's a very well read individual, and he
Yes.
takes things from so many different sources.
I don't remember him specifically mentioning any one source of inspiration that came to it, but when you're reading it, so the Hermit himself, obviously the adventure is about the adventures and the adventure that they go on, which is to go find the Hermit. That's basically the Hermit is this sage, this powerful, well versed sage who the king needs, and he can't find them. Even his magic users can't find them. So there's something amiss. Something has happened to the Hermit, right? So the object is go and find the Hermit. And at any point that you're looking at the portrayal of the Hermit in the book, and the Hermit's not in it a lot. I mean, he's there obviously as the backstory for everything. It kind of has that same feel to it, and this is where I think he probably drew a lot of inspiration of all those fantasy novels that we read in the 80s and the 90s. And there's always that wizard, right? That wizardly character that's not Gandalf, because Gandalf is more, what is he, a Maiar? Is that what they're
Yeah.
called? Yeah, he's a Maiar. He's an angel or whatever, and he's kind of this entity sent to Middle Earth to aid. But in most of those fantasy novels before Tolkien became the standard. The wizards are just these kind of strange guys who deal in esoteric knowledge and magic and stuff like that. I'm reminded of Merlin as portrayed in the movie Excalibur. He's a very strange, character. He's just kind of odd. And when I think about the Hermit in the module that Gary wrote, it reminds me of that kind of those just strange magic users, sorcerers that you see pop up in Xanth and Michael Moorcock books and stuff like that. Who is it? The Wish Song, the Shannara books. I think he what he basically did is he found a home in our hobby, in the RPG hobby, for that wizard.
Recently you put the Hermit out for Kickstarter, so
Yeah,
anyone that wants to grab it, it can at that point, and it did really well. Did over 100,000 in sales.
yes, very
You know,
happy. I got to say, it was nice to see Gary hasn't been in the public eye for a very long time, and it was nice to see this very small book of his. It's a 128-page short adventure. Um, get such validation from the community. That was very nice.
with this new book coming out, for anyone that's just hearing about this and like, wow, I totally missed the Kickstarter, which I think there's still time to back it. I think you can do late pledges. No,
Yeah, now
yes.
to get the late pledges set up, Chuck was actually working on that today. So it will be set up so you can do late pledges, absolutely. And that'll probably start in about 3 weeks, a month, something like that.
Can you share with us like the art direction, the production behind this work?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did. So the adventure itself is, like I said, it's pretty straightforward. You gotta go find this guy, but in very typical Gary Gygax approach to things, it's not so straightforward. The first section takes place in and around as you go to find the hermit in and around his domicile, and then the next section is this. I don't want to give too much away. It's this strange overland wilderness adventure. This very, very, very strange, and the last and third part gets you into this uh, not an extra planar, not planar, but almost planar. So there's a tremendous amount of room in this adventure for the CK, the DM, to go in multiple directions. For instance, when you're doing that second part, or even the first part, really, you can do all kinds of overland side adventures, side quests, all kinds of stuff. Gary's stuff, like you had mentioned earlier in Village of Hamlet, he left it open so that wherever the players go, and we all know, even I as a player, we go in crazy directions, have nothing to do with what's been presented to us. The Hermit gives you that. So it's given us the production side. When I kind of got into this a couple of months ago and began looking at it again seriously, when we had first done it back in 2002, the company was much smaller, then our resources were much smaller. So we did the overland maps. There's two of them, in and around the ponds, lake area with the hut, and then just kind of the overland, the mountains. I decided this time, instead of just doing a small map of this, to go all in, to take this and to flesh it, the whole thing out, so that if the GM decides to go to take, they're questing on this part. Well, I want to do this side adventure with an ogre magi. They can easily drop it in there. They've got the terrain and everything set. So Bill Edmonds, who's been doing our cartography for the past year and a half, he has dove in feet first to give us a really large, I want to say it's 22 by 32-inch full color map of the area where this will take place. So that's been a lot of fun seeing that expand. The cover, interestingly enough, I was just browsing through DeviantArt. I think it's DeviantArt and the other one, ArtStation, just looking for artists, as I do sometimes, looking for pieces of art. And Wesley Gardner's site rolled across. I think I was just typing in search things like Hermit, Hovel, anything like that, just see what would come up. And Wesley's piece came up, the one that ended up on the cover. It came up and I looked at it and I thought, wow, that's actually the Hermit. He actually drew the Hermit, and the way the story is given to us, the Hermit got tired of the King's Council and he left. So even this cover piece had this that we ended up using has this wizardly like guy, sage like guy leaving. He's going somewhere. So and there's a sense of urgency about it. And I remember I sent it to Davis, and Davis was like, "Yeah, that's really good." And for the next like 3 or 4 days, I just kept going back to Gardner's site and just staring at it, thinking, "This is really the cover. I mean, this is actually it." I don't know what Leslie channeled and at one point. But so I got a hold of him, and he responded almost immediately, super excited about it. So he had to do. I asked him to do a little bit so that the cover will expand onto the back of the case itself. But he dove into that, and now he's working on some of the interior shots that I'm super jazzed about. We'll get Peter Bradley to do some of the other interiors. Bill Edmonds will do all of the maps. I think 6 maps. There's a maze. Of course, there's a maze in the Gary Gygax adventure. So he'll knock these things out. And then we'll roll it. It's already been converted to CNC, and it's been edited once. We'll do one more edit on it, and then it'll be ready for layout. So we are hoping to have it out by Gary Con in March. That is the hope.
Hmm. So if I may ask, so when I look at a lot of his old modules, Gygax's modules, sometimes some situations I could kind of peek into his morality, his ethics a little bit here and there. Sometimes you'll see it. Would you say, I don't know, we can't spoil too much, but would you say this is much more than just dungeon delving? Would you say that's probably like maybe because it sounds like in the beginning of the story, it's not just him disappearing, the hermit disappearing. It looks like he has an issue with the king. It looks like all right, I'm kind of tired of fighting these wars with you, and just leaving. So there's like, it's almost like I'm sensing there's a coming, uh, almost like an ethical or a dilemma coming in some way. Am I close?
You're very close. Now, I certainly do not want to put words in Gary's mouth. I don't, I would never do that. But you can definitely, yeah, because the opening is it's a war council that the king has called, and the sage, the most important man in the kingdom next to the king himself, that doesn't want to be a part of it. Clearly, he doesn't want to be a part of it. Yeah, and I don't want to give too much away, but that kind of the bucking of tyrannical authority is there's an undercurrent here. And again, I don't want to put too much into it because Gary didn't wear his politics too much on his sleeve. I mean, he was making games, and his whole thing was just for people to have fun playing the games. But who doesn't want to rebel against a tyrannical king? So there definitely is that kind of undercurrent, and that undercurrent of I'm a powerful individual, and I don't really have to participate in all of this stuff. We can help derail it a little bit by walking away. It's kind of, yeah. That's funny. You should mention that because it is the opening salvo. Is I'm calling a war council. Where is my most important advisor? Why has he fled? That's the
I probably have to ask you more about the adventure. I want to keep it a secret to our viewers as well as
Well,
to
no,
myself.
I will say though, you mentioned is it lots and lots of dungeons. There's not lots of dungeons in this. It's got some dungeon in it, not a lot. It's just got some strange encounter areas. I won't go. They're just wild. So,
Hmm. If I may ask, is this connected to Castle Zygag in any way? Is this connected to the world of Castles and Crusades in any way?
the Hermit was written for Legendary Adventures and then converted to Dungeons and Dragons Third Edition, and then we published it for that. I don't remember ever circling back to the Hermit while Gary was still alive. We did circle back. He began writing Castle Zagig for Castles and Crusades before he had passed away. He worked on that for about a year and a half. Well, it's more than that. For about 4 years, he worked on Yigsburg, the Eastmark Folio, and then the dungeons and whatnot. He had worked on a lot of that stuff, and all of that was being written for Castles and Crusades and was published for Castles and Crusades. And we had talked about doing Hall of Many Pains, which is another fantastic Gary Gygax epic adventure as CNC, but I don't remember specifically circling back to the Hermit. But it fits perfectly with the game system that he helped us, that he kind of oversaw as we were developing it. And what we're going to do, because it was written for Legendary Adventures, and I cannot remember the name of his world, it escapes me at the moment, for Legendary Adventures. It was actually put in that. So if you look at his original kingdom names, they're related to that. Now, what we are going to do is give pretty specific guidelines, and we'll do this in the Hermit. If you want this to be part of the Castle Zagig milieu, this is where to put it. And the nice thing is Gary gave us the East Mark Folio, which is this large area around the city of Yigsburg. And if you kind of think of this area like this, Yigsburg's down here and Castle Zagging is up here. And all of this is just two rivers and a bunch of little villages and open terrain and stuff. And we will put the Hermit somewhere around in there for those people who kind of want that completionist thing. This is where we would advise you to put it, set it there. And with all of that in mind, we will do a for Aired, for those people who are playing in the world of Aired. If you want to place it in the world of Aired, this is where we would advise you to do it. You certainly put it wherever you want, because that's the nice thing about what Gary's created and what we hope to explore is it's this self-contained area that you could put into any setting that you want, from Greyhawk to Aired to Luke Gygax's to all of them. I mean, it's you can put it almost anywhere.
If I this might be a bit of a personal question, so no need to answer this. Was it? I know from personally for myself, anyone that I've worked with that may have passed away, or anyone close to me, and their items, dealing with that for me is very difficult. Was working on this. I mean, in a way, I think it's amazing that you and your company, are putting out these books out so that we can see almost like the completed works of Gygax. Like see the evolution of his mind from the beginning to the end. But is it difficult sometimes? Like okay, this is almost like the I don't want to say finality of his work. It just sounds
Yeah, yeah.
horrible.
No, I mean, no, that's at the end of the day, that's the truth. I mean, we're not going to see any more Gary Gygax material. We're going to see a property that people might expand, that people might do something with, but specifically for something like the Hermit, he wrote this adventure. This is him. This is all Gary Gygax. There's no ghostwriters. There's none of this other stuff. And there was editors who helped him with this, that, and the other, but this is Gary Gygax. The Hall of Many Pains is Gary Gygax. He wrote this stuff. So it is kind of bittersweet to know what we're working on. And for me personally, there's two sides of the coin. One side, I know I worked with him for 8 years, and anytime we did something that he liked or he didn't like or whatever, he let us know, right? There was no, there was no, maybe, no, don't do this. No, don't, no, that's not right. You're doing that wrong. I don't want this to appear like this. And that kind of guidance is nice, right? It's his IP. It's just, it never bothered me that this is okay. That's great. You want to present it this way. That's fantastic. So I know that that hand is not going to be here this time. So I'm going to have to rely upon my own experiences with Gary, and I'll rely on other people's like Jim Ward, Jeff Delaney, and Luke and Ernie Gygax, people who knew Gary. I'll constantly be asking, "What do you think?" Because we want to do. I want to do anything we do with Gary's as true to Gary and not as true to whatever's going on in whatever market trends or whatever. I want it to be true to Gary Gygax. So that's the one side of it. On the other side, it is extraordinarily. It fills me with a great deal of joy and whatever that I get to return to this, because I had promised Gary in January of 08. He died in March of 08. I had promised him in January that there was a lot of projects that we were going to do, whether he died or not, because he didn't know he was going to die, but he was preparing for it. He knew he was older. He smoked. He drank. He ate, and all this other stuff. And he had given me this laundry list of things that he wanted completed, and now I can do that to some degree. Now I can step forward and we can get some of this stuff done. So in that regards, I'm very happy about it. But it's a little bittersweet, because I'm not going to have his voice over my shoulder going or saying yes, do it that way. Either way. So
is there looking at this work again? And we know Gygax's style is very multi-layered. Sometimes there's like hidden jokes and things, or he'll add like a piece of like history trivia that you may not notice at first. Did you catch any of that looking at this work again when you were like reviewing it, like, oh, I remember this, or like, oh, that was clever. I didn't see this the first time.
it's funny thing about Gary and both his writing and his just in person. I am absolutely horrific with hidden meanings, puns, whatever irony, all of this stuff. It just goes right past me. And we had probably worked together maybe a year and a half when he figured this out. So we would we'd have dinner together, just tip a beer together, or just be sitting there talking business, whatever. And he would make these puns or jokes, and then he would look. There could be 8 people at the table, and he would look right at me because he knew the cogs in my brain were going to move so slow that he could enjoy my suffering for a little bit longer as I tried to figure out what pun that I was missing or whatever. So for hidden meanings in the Hermit specifically, I didn't pick up on any more this time. I'm certain they're in there. I did pick up on something you alluded to that I don't even think I remember even recognizing this before. He's got it set so if your character at the end, if your characters do this, he's got a plan. If your characters do this, he's got a plan. If you do this, he's got a plan. So there's just that for me getting back into it, and I'm really anxious to get back into Hall of Many Pains. And I'll tell you what, I will read carefully next time to look for some of that stuff. So when we meet again, I'll I'll be able to maybe answer it better. But it's just the many layers of Gary Gygax's writing that I just enjoy it. As a gamer, I enjoy it. I mean, it's fun because when you're running a game, as you know, players go off in every which direction they possibly can imagine, which is great. But it's nice when the writer of an adventure is aware of that in the beginning and kind of gives you the tools to react to it.
Hmm. So, what is next for Troll Lord Games? I know recently also you did another successful Kickstarter where you explored heaven and hell, at least your
Yes.
settings version of heaven and hell. So, what is next on the horizon?
So the next big project we got is the Gary Gygax's Gygaxian Fantasy World series. That's 7 volumes, hardcovers. That's kind of an encyclopedia set that he was working on. It has the Book of Names, the Canting Crew, Living Fantasy, and City. It's got a bunch of how-to books to both world build and run RPGs. So that Kickstarter will launch in March. I'm super excited about that. That's probably man, I got it. I don't want to again put words in Gary's mouth, but I think that's probably what he was the most excited about. He put so much work into the Gygaxian Fantasy World Series because I think he was trying to bring his knowledge of game design, role playing, and world building, to the community at large. And in those 7 books, they're all on my desk here, and I use them all the time in both writing and anything that I'm in designing. But so we'll launch a Kickstarter for that in March, and in second quarter we are going to do our big rehaul of Castles and Crusades, removing the OGL content from it. We're probably about 50 to 60% done with that already. So we will bring that to the community in one shape or the other, Kickstarter, whatever we do, in the second quarter. And then beyond that, we've got Codex of the Plains, Davis's and Zaya. Amazing Adventures is coming out. It's going to be an absolutely crazy year.
Did you just say 7 uh, volumes? I
Yes.
just want to be sure. I was like, wait, 7?
Yes.
Wow.
It's 7 that we had published, and 8 that we were in the editing process when the licenses were pulled. And I swear there were 2 others that were written. Now, these aren't all written by Gary Gygax. He wrote The Canting Crew, Living Fantasy, and half of World Builder. And then the other 4 were written by other writers that, like the Book of Names is just a collection of 200,000 names or whatever it is. He did these. Some of the stuff he parceled out to writers, but it's definitely something that he was overseeing and trying to bring to the community. Living Fantasy is the 3rd book in that series, and I think it's my favorite of all of Gary Gygax's written work because in that he discusses how you take a real world setting and merge it with your fantasy setting, and it is really fascinating. And it's all Gary. He wrote the whole thing. No co-authors, no any of that stuff. And it's just filled with just tidbits. Like there would be no surgeons and doctors because you've got clerics who can heal. I mean, the medical community would be completely different. So I don't know. It's good stuff. Very good stuff.
Hmm. So again, the Hermit, it just finished its successful Kickstarter, um, and I guess you could say the backer kit, the
Yeah, the
the
pledge manager type thing. The manage, yeah, where we
uh,
manage the pledge.
Okay, and I'll put all that information in the links below, so anyone wants to check it out while they can still do so. And just to remind viewers that Castle Zygag, is it Zygag? If I'm
I say Zagig, but Zygag works. Yeah, whatever.
So yes, I want to remind our viewers that at Trollord Games, there's also Castle Zygag and other great works you should really check out. Again, they just reprinted their core rule books for Castle Crusades, and it's amazing. The art is so good, and I think we
Well,
talked before. Like I love the homages you done
yes.
for the covers. You
Yeah.
know, it's amazing.
Thank you.
But um, but yes, viewers. Oh, sorry. Before we wrap up, is there any last words you want to share?
I just want to thank you for having me on. I love it. Appreciate it when you have me on. And everyone just head over to Troller. We got so many things going on, from Gary Gygax to Castle Stage Amazing Adventures. It's just crazy over there. And join us on all the social medias. Absolutely.
So again, viewers, I will put all the information in the description below. Thank you for watching. Stay safe out there. We'll see you next time.